Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good and maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now, the next 3 weeks, we're going to be discussing a little trilogy that isn't really often talked about that much anymore. Well, I mean, it pops up in occasion every once in a while, but mostly, now it doesn't really seem to be popping up on the radar anymore. And that is the Rush Hour Trilogy. Obviously, we're going to be starting off with the original, which came out on September 18th of 1998. Now, my history with this film is actually pretty vague because, honestly, I've heard every once in a while about these films, but never really, you know, got the chance to sit down and watch them. And then a few years ago, I picked up this trilogy set from Best Buy for honestly a pretty good price, about like $20. And so I picked it up, and so far I've not watched any of them until until this review, which obviously I had to sit down and watch the original. And I'll just say this right now, I was pleasantly surprised with how good it was. So let's get on to the review itself. This was made with a budget of $33 million. Domestically, it made over 141 million, and worldwide, it made over 244 million. So this was a massive success, and this was technically, um, I know at least one of the first Jackie Chan films to be released in America. Because I believe that was actually released, like, was intended to be released in America, I should say. Um, because most of his previous work up until the mid '90s was all Hong Kong. That was really until Rumble in the Bronx in '95, where they were like, hey, let's see, how this would do in the U.S. And I think about a year later in '96, it got an official U.S. release. So yeah, and then I think there was Mr. Nice Guy in '97, and that did okay. But then this was like really like the one that catapulted his career in America. Um. So yeah, and this was directed by Brent Ratner, who I believe went on to direct some Disney Pixar films, like I believe The Incredibles and like Ratatouille and stuff like that. And obviously, he directed the two sequels, which I think he did actually. I'm gonna check this right now. Um, yeah, but I believe he went to go and do Ratatouille and like The Incredibles and stuff like that. Yep, he directed all three of them. So yeah. So anyway, let's get on to the plot. So when a Chinese diplomat's daughter is kidnapped in Los Angeles, he calls in Hong Kong Detective Inspector Lee, played by Jackie Chan, to assist the FBI in the case. But the FBI doesn't want anything to do with Lee, and they dump him off at the LAPD, who assign wisecracking detective James Carter, played by Chris Tucker, to watch over him. Although Lee and Carter can't stand each other, they choose to work together to solve the case on their own when they figure out that they've been ditched by both the FBI and the police. Now, as I said earlier, I was fairly surprised with how good this movie was, and just reading that plot, like when I haven't seen it yet, um, because I write the scripts out before I go and watch the movies because I still want to have a slot left for my rating. So I usually just do the script first, then watch it, then put my rating on there, and then go and do the review. So just reading that plot, it was just kind of I'm just looking at it like, okay, I've heard of this plot before, and it's not very interesting most of the time. So seeing that was just kind of okay. Well, let's see how this goes. And I was honestly fairly surprised to see a few well-named actors in this film, or at least actors that I remember. Oh, I mean, obviously we have the two main stars, Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. They both are surprisingly good in this film. I mean, really, Jackie Chan for me is the main star. Even though I think they both have either exactly the same amount or roughly the same amount of screen time together. So, but yeah, I just feel like that Jackie Chan overall is the main star of this film. But Chris Tucker is actually not insufferable in this film, which is honestly surprising when you compare him to, especially his work in the '90s, which literally the year before this came out, he starred in The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis, and no offense to anyone who likes his performance in Fifth Element, but he was in fucking insufferable in that film. But surprisingly, yeah, he was actually. I mean, yeah, he still has that. He's literally a wisecracking cop, but I feel like that honestly in this role, it actually makes sense and it actually fits it. So yeah, I don't actually find him in that. I mean, yeah, there are some scenes that I was like, ooh, okay, yeah, no, and no, Jackie has some like one or two scenes that were like that too, but even then with Chris Tucker, when I had those moments, it was more like a laughing kind of cringe where it's like you can't really blame it that much for what they were trying to go for. So um we have Tins Ma. I'm so sorry if I butchered this any of these Chinese names. Who plays Council Han? He actually does really good in this film. I was not expecting him to be this enjoyable. We have Su Young as Zhang Jingchu, um, who is the daughter of Han, and again, she does great with honestly the very few amount of scenes where you actually hear her actually talk. I think it's really only like 3 to 5 scenes. Um, and granted, she doesn't even pop up in the film that much. So, but overall, her performance was great. So I didn't write them down here, but just to mention them, the two lead FBI agents, I recognize both of them. Um, I don't remember either of the names, but I recognize the first one from a few different roles. I even though I can't remember the names of them, but the second guy I remember from what's his face? Oh yeah, I remember from Cliffhanger, who played the sidekick or the side villain to the main villain in that, and then he also played a small role in Breakdown with Kurt motherfucking Russell, who plays a cop in that film. So I recognize that guy, especially. I was like, oh, it's that guy. I don't remember your name, but it's that guy. And then we have our two lead villains. The main one, which is Thomas Griffin or Janto, or Junto, played by Tom Wickelson. I recognize this guy from a few roles. So when I saw him, I was just like, I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting him to be a villain because spoilers, they play him up as like a good guy at the beginning, and he pops up later on in the film. But then, like within the last act of the film, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm the main bad guy." So that was honestly actually good. Um, so yeah, so not a bad villain. Um, but grandly though, he does play a lot of villain roles in a lot of films. So just seeing him in a corner at first being a quote unquote good guy, it's like, yeah, I don't buy that one bit. Um, but and then we have King Loong. Again, so sorry if I butchered your name as Sang, who is really the main. I guess the main because no, because technically he's the secondary villain, but he's the one that we know from the very beginning is a villain because we see him at the beginning in the first scene, and we can already tell he's the bad guy, and then he pops up throughout the film, like literally as a bad guy. So it's like, yeah, I already know you're the bad guy, but for like, even there was a small part of me that was just like thinking like, yeah, for some reason you're not the main bad guy, and I don't know why. So yeah, that was like, um, that was he was good. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. Um, wow, I already went. Okay, I was not expecting to go for all the cast like that. I mean, obviously, you guys are. If some of you guys are, major martial arts fans, you should know Jackie Chan from several classics like the Honor of God series, the Police Story series, Rumble with the Bronx. Several well-known, martial arts, films. I would put him up there with, Bruce Lee. Like, I mean, honestly, for me, Bruce Lee's number one, and then Jackie Chan is a very, very close second. Um, I do admit though that as time has gone on, Jackie Chan has become a better actor because really Bruce Lee only had technically 5 films. Technically 4 because the last one wasn't even complete, like fully with him in it. So I guess technically 4.5. But he only really starred in 5 films. So, I can't exactly and then like Jackie Chan is one still alive, two has probably triple and not, probably quadruple the amount of film roles than Bruce Lee, and two I think honestly he's way more known to the general public in terms of a um like an out of America martial artist than Bruce Lee. Even though no Bruce Lee has still retained a major status as one of the best martial artists ever, and I don't blame them. I can see why people would, if you say, um, who would you prefer, Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan? I can see why people would say Jackie Chan, because most people probably have grown up with him. So I can totally understand that. Um, but honestly, I think this is honestly the first full movie that I've seen with Jackie Chan in it. I know I probably just pissed off a lot of martial arts fans just by saying that, but it's true. I've only really seen clips from a lot of his films, and this was actually the first one that I've seen fully in terms of his filmography. In fact, I think this is the only Jackie Chan film I have in my collection. I do plan on changing that though. I do want to get Rumble in the Bronx, um, as well as the Police Story series and City Hunter. That's another big one I want to try and get. But anyway. Um, so yeah, according to well, okay. I guess to go into favorite scenes, because well, yeah. So really for me, every single fight scene is a favorite scene. Um, I feel like that. Obviously Jackie Chan does all of like the fist fighting while Chris Tucker does all like the gunplay and stuff. So yeah, but really just like all the fight scenes throughout the film. The first one that I can really remember as like an actual fight scene is the shoot, I'm already forgetting. Um shoot, oh my god, I've actually forgotten. Okay, well, I'll just name off the first one I remember. It was the Chinese restaurant fight scene. That was just so memorable for me because it starts off basically with Chris Tucker asking to see uh Jinto, and um and like he gets taken into the back room, and then basically just gets his ass kicked, and then um and then Sang comes up to him and he throws him a towel. He's like, "Wipe yourself off, you're bleeding." And remember that because that will come up near the end of the film. So yeah, so he says that and he walks away, and then they're about to kill him. And then Jackie walks in and he's like, stop. And he tries to boil the gun and he falls over and he just throws the tray at them like, yeah, screw you, bitch. And they starts fighting them. And it's like, oh my god. Really, honestly, I feel like that every single fight scene with Jackie Chan is just amazing. Um, I mean, I've already mentioned that, but yeah, but just really all of the fight scenes throughout the entire film are my favorite scenes. But if I had to pick one um, that wasn't a fight scene that I actually really liked, and it's honestly probably my favorite scene in the entire film, is after the Chinese restaurant fight. Lee gets taken back to the house with Counselor Han, and he says, he's like, I'm sorry, like I just like I didn't mean to do that, so I hope you can accept my apology. He's like, and then Han's like, well, I'm sorry, but I've already scheduled you to go back to Hong Kong, and you could see right then like the emotion on Jackie's face is just like, oh Jesus Christ. Um, and then Chris Tucker walks in and he tries to defend him, which granted he is right. He did kind of screw up everything for him, but it's not gonna help him. It's not gonna help Lee, so he gets sent back, and then like really that entire scene from him finding out that he's going back to like the car ride there, and then when he's on the plane and he talks to Chris Tucker, you can just see the emotion on his face, like he knows that he's failed, and um, that's really just my favorite scene in the entire film. It's just like that emotion on Jackie's face where it's just like, oh god. Um, so yeah, I think my favorite line in the entire film is at the end fight where it's at the Chinese expedition like the I can't speak. Jesus Christ, I just had a stroke. Exhibition. Um so Jackie goes and fights Jinto, so like Thomas Griffin, and oh, no. Jackie goes to fight Thomas Griffin, and then Chris Tucker goes to fight Sane because he already shot like a whole bunch of FBI agents, including like the main one. And he's about to kill him when Chris Tucker walks in and he goes, and he's like, put the gun down, man. And he's like, if you, he's like, and the saying's like, if you don't drop your gun, he's dead. And he's like, all right, drop your gun first. And he's like, all right, fight man to man, fight a real fight. And he's like, okay. And they both like simultaneously move their guns away, waiting for the other person to drop, and they both drop it simultaneously. And then Sang pulls out a second gun and tries to shoot him. Uh, Carter drops down and pulls out like a little tiny revolver from his I think it's from his shoe, and shoots like Sang in the face. I'm like, yes. And then he comes over and he opens up his his shirt and he grabs the towel and he's like, wipe yourself off. You did. And I'm like, that's honestly probably the best line you've given out of the entire film. Because that was both badass and funny at the same time. Like, it was a good payoff and it was funny as hell. So, good job to Chris Tucker. I do admit though that if I do have one, besides all the cringy moments throughout the entire film, which was honestly not that much, um, the only one that really kind of affected me that much that I can remember is when like near the beginning of the film, or I say around the middle when Lee and Carter are like walking around, they go into this like bar area, and then he goes and then Carter acts like like he's trying to interrogate him like the big strong guy, and then he goes like Lee, like go and cover me out in the back, And then once he leaves, they're like, "Hey, you what's good, man?" And then he goes up to the bar. He sits down at the bar, and obviously I can't say this because I'm not black, but he basically just goes up, he turns around to the bartender and he goes, what's up, my N-word? And he goes like, what the fuck did you say to me? And he's like, I was just trying to be nice, and he just like puts him in the chokehold, and then like he starts fighting like all the patrons of the bar, like at the bar, and he kicks all their asses, but it's like, oh, Jackie Chan, why'd you say that? Why'd you have to say that? So like that's one fight where it's like, granted, it isn't his fault because like he's still trying to adapt to American life, but it's also you know yeah, you should have watched yourself when you say that around certain areas. So it's like, mm, um, so yeah, um, so the music was composed by Lalo Schifrin. If that name sounds familiar to any martial arts fans, he also did the scores for both Enter the Dragon and Game of Death. Well, actually, no. He did Enter the Dragon, and then he was asked to do Game of Death, but um, I think there's still conflicting reports about why he didn't do the score. Maybe just I think the biggest egregious opinion is that he just felt like it was in bad taste. Considering what that film was. So yeah, I can see that, but um, and then they hired John Barry to do the score for Game of Death. But yeah, so you have a very well-known composer in terms of martial arts films to come into this film, which just seems like a martial arts kind of action film. And honestly, the score is actually pretty good. Um, yeah, it's a mixture um like kind of like the same kind of score, not exactly obviously, but kind of like the same score they did for Enter the Dragon, as well as okay, so I see it as like two different types of music, or actually no, three. So you have the Chinese kind of music similar to Enter the Dragon for Lee's character. You have all of like the hip hoppy kind of music for Carter, and then you have the orchestral score for the film itself. Um, all three of them work well for this film. I did laugh though that the first song that you hear in terms of like kind of like hip hop for Carter's character is a Michael Jackson song. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Because I know that pops up in the second film, but I was not expecting it to pop up in this film. And then I think that the next song is War, uh which in like that's a scene by itself between Lee and Carter, which is another favorite scene of mine, and probably one of the most iconic scenes from this film is is Jackie Chan trying to sing a war. So that's actually really funny. But yeah, I feel like that the score overall is actually very good. But eh, it's another one of those scores where, in terms of listening it with the film, it's great, but um, listening to it by itself is just kind of eh. I don't know if there's a soundtrack release for this film. There probably is. You can probably find it on like iTunes and stuff like that. But I don't know if there's an actual physical release of the soundtrack for this film. Um, so yeah, there is an isolated track for the Blu-ray, but for some reason it has a commentary track with composer Lalo Schifrin. So I don't actually know if you can, in terms of the Blu-ray, if you can actually listen to the score by itself with like no commentary and stuff. Um, but um, yeah. So I might do some more research after I'm done recording. Um, so Well, actually, might as well really quickly to talk about this trilogy release. Um, so yeah, so it actually has this very nice looking cover art, which obviously Brett Ratner's Rush Hour Trilogy. You got Lee and Carter right there. You have the car that Carter drives in the first film. I don't know if it pops up in any of the other ones. And then there's the spine. And then the back here it shows, I'm assuming, all of the villains from all three films. So obviously, here is Sang, and then the little girl from this film. And then I'm assuming that these are the guys from the second film because I recognize these ones from the third one. So yeah. So yeah, and then we um take it out of the case. Has the same cover art and spine, and then obviously on the back it goes over all the information and stuff. Um, and then we open it up, and then we have the disc for the first movie, a disc for the second movie, and the third movie, and then we have a bonus features disc for only the third movie for some reason, and then we have a separate bonus features disc. So I don't know why the third film got a special features disc and not the other two. Um, but yeah, that just seems kind of weird. Um, but yeah. All right, so I actually have two fun facts for this one. I'm gonna try for this point on to get two fun facts for each film. If I can't, then I'll just stick with one. But the first one is Brett Ratner was apparently a huge fan of Jackie Chan, but he felt like that the American audiences wouldn't be familiar with the jokes in his previous films. So he actually reused quite a few of them in this film. Um, so I didn't recognize them because again, I haven't really seen any of each other films. But maybe for hardcore Jackie Chan fans, you guys might be able to notice and leave them down in the comments down below. And the second one is according to Brett Ratner, who again is the director of all three films. This was Jackie Chan's first American film where he wasn't dubbed over and he was speaking full English. So hey, not a bad film to start out your English career. And I've already mentioned the composer. So yeah. All right. So final thoughts on Rush Hour 1. It's honestly a very enjoyable film, and it's a very quick film. It's only 98 minutes long. So if you want to put on a quick little action film that mixes both Chinese martial arts and American action comedy, I say the first film in the Rush Hour trilogy is a good film to watch. Over the next 2 weeks, I will be discussing the other two films. But for this film, I'm going to give it an A minus because yes, there are some scenes throughout the film that were lacking a bit, but overall, I did enjoy myself with the first film. So I'm going to give this film an A minus. So hope you guys enjoyed this review or this episode of Russell Movie Reviews where I talked about Rush Hour. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to be discussing Rush Hour 2, released in 2001. You can click over here on my profile picture to go to my channel, or click down on my username down there, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to get notified when future videos are coming out. And click over here to watch the latest two videos. And also make sure to follow me on my social media pages at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Those will all be down in the description below. And also follow me on Twitch because Halloween season is coming around. So I will be doing some maybe some little spooky streams over at my Twitch page. So yeah, that's also down in the description below. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this review of Rush Hour, and stay tuned for next week where I will be discussing Rush Hour 2, released in 2001. Live long and prosper. Hail!